All right, everybody. This is Beth Martinec. She is the eldest sister of Kathy G and is an interior designer based out of Scottsdale. As a sister of an individual with a colossal disorder, she has a deep understanding of the challenges faced by families and individuals when living with this disorder. Beth earned both her bachelor's and master's of education and curriculum development from Cornell University. She was a high school teacher and later served as a curriculum development specialist at Cornell. Beth uses her experience in teaching and leadership along with her unique personal experience to give thoughtful perspective to this on the disorder and how to teach life skills. So we really want to thank Beth for coming on and doing this webinar for us, and we'll let her get started.
Great. Thanks, Barb. Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here and excited to be sharing some of my knowledge with you. And so today our topic is going to be about friends and finding them and keeping them, but it's more of what I like to think of as a guide to navigating the people in your life. And so we're going to start today by just looking at a few facts about friendship and friends and talking about that. Then we're going to talk about something that I call my scale of friends or relationships. I'm going to take you through a couple of examples, and then I'm going to talk to you about some continued strategies for success. And then we'll finish off the webinar with time for questions. So if you're thinking of something, if I kind of spark your interest or you think of a question that you have while I'm running through the slides, you can put them in the chat and then we will cover those at the end. So we'll get started here. Just a couple of facts on friendship, and I like to go over this because I think that it's really easy to have a misunderstanding about friends and friendship and relationships in general, like how people are categorized in your life. And so your average adult actually only has a very few close friends, somewhere between 1 and 4 close friends. So what is a close friend? A close friend is somebody that I know if I wrecked my car in the middle of the night, I could call them and I could say, "Hey, Cynthia, I know it's 2 a.m. Would you come and pick me up?" And she'd be like, "I'll be right there. What else do you need?" That's a close friend. A close friend is someone you would call if you needed a shoulder to cry on. That's a close friend. A close friend is someone you've known for years. They might know just about everything there is to know about you, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they still are there right by your side. So your average person only has a few of those. I also want to mention that it's normal for friends to come and go in your life. It's normal for lots of different types of people to come and go in your life. So this idea that, the friends that you need to make friends now, or you need to make friends when you're young because I don't know, that's all you have, or those are the friends that you're going to have when you grow up. That's not really reality. I have one friend that I have maintained from my childhood, and all the rest of my friends have come and gone. Friends from school, friends from college, friends from different places I've lived. They come and go. So that's something that happens. It's just a part of life. And so when you think about friends, you should focus more on the quality of your friends and not the quantity of friends, not the number of people in your life that you think are your friends or you want to have friends. And that can be hard to do this day and age because, especially with social media, that can give you a false sense of what a friend is, what friendship really means. Years ago, I had a friend, she was getting married, and her fiance was talking to me one day, and he said, "Oh, it's going to be a really big wedding." And I said, "Oh, it is?" And he said, "Yeah, I have 300 friends." And I was like, "You have 300 friends you're inviting to your wedding?" He said, "Oh yeah, I have 300 friends." I said, "How on earth do you have time to have 300 friends?" And he said, "Well, that's how many friends I have on my Facebook page." And I said, "Oh, wait a minute. How many of these 300 friends live in your town with you? How many of these 300 friends have you talked to this week or this month? How many, so we we had to go through this whole conversation of like, okay, now out of these 300 friends, if you got in a car accident in the middle of the night and you called all 300 of them, would they all show up at your door to help you? Or how many of those would be there? And in the end, I think he figured out that he had, out of those 300 friends, he had maybe three or four who were truly friends, people he talked to on the phone, people who lived where he lived, people who were involved in his life on a continuing basis. Um, and so I'm telling you these things because a lot of a lot of the a lot of times when I do these seminars or I'm talking to other people about this, they're very uh they struggle with the fact that they feel like they don't have any friends and that they're not being successful finding friends. And I think somewhere in there they think that everybody must have dozens of friends floating around, and why am I the one who can't even find a few? um, so I like to point this out because this is the reality. Everybody truly only has a few true friends. Everybody has friends that have come and gone in their life. It's the quality that's important. And so finding people who are truly friends is work, and it that takes time. I found this quote from George Washington. He says, "True friendship is a plant of slow growth." So it takes time. True friendship takes time to build. And so to help you kind of navigate the people in your life, um, I developed this, I call it Beth's, I think actually Kathy named it. She calls it Beth's scale of friends because Catherine really struggled with this also when she was younger. Um, finding her true friends, but also understanding that not everyone you meet is a friend. And it's better to think, and even my friend's fiance, I had to give him the same speech of like, okay, there are people in your life and you can't just lump everybody into these are my friends category. So how can you think about all of these people in your life? Well, these are some of my categories that I put people into. I put people into the category of people I know from work, coworkers, a casual acquaintance, maybe somebody, somebody that I know from the gym, or I don't know, church or something like that. They could be a casual acquaintance. There are people who are my neighbors. Then there are people I consider my friends. There could be different types of friends, school friends, work friends, boyfriend, girlfriend, my best friend. And so I kind of, on top of just making this list of these categories, I put them in order of um, not necessarily importance, but in order of maybe how much interaction I would have with these people on a continuous basis to help me understand where all these people fit. And um, I started becoming aware of this, I think when Catherine was, well, even when she was really little, like 3 or 4 years old, I was in high school and I had a boyfriend. And um, one of the things that we would have to do, my boyfriend Mike and I, was basically try and stay away from Catherine. She would follow us around, and she always liked to sit on Mike's lap or have all of his attention. And she thought, you know, Mike kind of came over to give her all of this attention. Um, we also, my parents had friends, their names were Fred and Steve. They were just some guys that they knew from church, and they would come over a lot too, and they really loved to interact with Catherine. But she also thought that they came over um to just to see her, and so she just relished in all of the attention that she got from them. And I think looking back at it now, um had we been aware that she had this disorder, because we didn't know she had it until she was like 19. So had we known she had it, and had we had kind of a system like this, I think even then we could have used kind of this knowledge to help her start to understand that she needed to put people in categories so that her interactions with those people would be appropriate for those people. Um, so my recommendation to you, if you're listening to this and you have a child with this, is I would say listen to all of this. And I'm going to go through some charts next and some examples. And I would say if your child can walk and talk, you could make like a star chart or something similar to this that would work even with a very young child. And I would say it's never too young um, to start working with your kids on these things. Uh, so looking at this scale of friends, I'll tell you about how I use this. So I have a friend, his name is Marco, and Marco didn't start out being my friend. Marco was a person that I met the day that I started my job as an interior designer out here in Scottsdale, which was like 13 years ago. So Marco and I kind of started right around the same time at work. And so for a long time, Marco was one of my new coworkers at work. And I liked him. We're friendly. We have good conversations. But if you had asked me, hey, who's Marco? I would say, oh, he's one of my coworkers from work. Super nice guy. We have fun chatting while we're at work. After a few years, if you asked me who Marco is, I would have said, oh, Marco's a longtime coworker of mine, and we're pretty good friends at work. You know, I can rely on him at work. We kind of tell each other our problems while we're at work, and I give him advice, he gives me advice. We might eat lunch together in the lunchroom. He's a longtime coworker. Now, if you'd ask me, hey, who's Marco? I would say he's one of my good work friends. He comes over to my house occasionally with his wife and their kids. They come and have come to our pool parties that we have. I've been on vacation with Marco and his family. So after 13 years, Marco has worked his way down this list from a coworker I just met to someone who's a good friend. So what I did to help people think about this process of categorizing your friends, and more I should say like the people in your life, categorizing the people in your life, the people in your child's life is a good way to help them understand how to interact with people. And this is one of the charts that Barb has available. So if you're wanting this from her, she will have this available, and I think it's in a Microsoft Word format, so you can change it to meet your needs. So across the top, what I would do is put the people you know. And I just have basic categories, but if you were filling this out for real, I might put under this work category, I might put Marco. Um, Under my neighbors category, I might put Ron and Diane. I might put uh, Jackson and Monica. Um, so fill in the actual people that are in your life up here across the top. And then down the side, you can fill in all different types of interactions that you might have with these people. Everything from simply saying hello to going over to their house without telling them you're coming. And so again, take this and make it fit your unique situation. I would, if you're helping a child or someone who has the disorder, I might fill this out for them or with them as an exercise. And then after you have this all filled out, you can go back and under this category, oops, hang on here, of work, if I had Marco in here and he was a new coworker, I could use some symbols for, maybe even, oops, I can't do that on here, a yes or a no. So if Marco was my new friend from work, I could say yes to saying hello to him, but I might say no to inviting him to come over to my house. I would say no to him inviting him to go see a movie. Um, so this chart can help you organize the people in your life and have an understanding of what are the right types of things to do with all these people and things you might want to avoid doing with all these people. Along with this, the next slide is some other things you have to factor in to the scale of friends. So you need to factor in time. So going back to my example of Marco, Marco moved down a timeline. He went from a new coworker to a longtime coworker to a work friend I've had for 13 years. So that factor of time will affect how I change my interactions with him. The other thing that might change your interactions with people besides time is their age in relationship to you. There might be things that are appropriate for you to do with someone who is your own age that would not be appropriate for you to do with someone who is either much older than you or much younger than you are. So thinking about that while you're filling out your scale of friends chart is important. Along with gender, there are things you wouldn't do. Again, my friend Marco, he's a guy, I'm a girl, and so I'm not going to, and he's married and has children, so I'm not going to ask Marco, even though I consider him a pretty good work friend, I'm not going to ask him to go to a movie. I'm not going to ask him to come over to my house without inviting his wife and his kids. There are things that wouldn't be appropriate for me to do because of that. So same with age. It might not be Um, as you get older, the age things gets less and less. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I have a friend who's 20 years older than I am, and she's one of my good friends. She's one of my friends I can call if I end up in jail and I need someone to bail me out. I can call her. She's 20 years older than I am. So that factor of time, even for yourself, as you get older, it's not such a big deal to have friends who are maybe much older than you are or much younger than you are. Again, some of my good work friends are uh, maybe 15 years younger than I am. So, but you want to think about that if you're helping your child or yourself and you're younger. Think about how long you've known people. Think about their age in relation to you and their gender in relation to you. And so again, you could make another chart if you wanted to and keep track of how long you've known all of these people that are in your life. Or you could combine this with um, the first chart that I showed you. So just to take you through a couple of examples and how this would work for you or your child, or um, you might have someone who we're going to call Mary. She's a work person. So I started a new job and I just met her yesterday. She's my same age and she lives near me. So going back to my scale of friends, she fits in the coworker category and she's a new coworker because I just met her yesterday. So because she's a coworker and she's my same age and we just started this job, I met her yesterday. It might be appropriate for me to eat lunch with her at work, but I'm not going to call her and ask her for a ride to work. I'm not going to invite her to go see a movie with me. She's just a coworker. She's not a friend. I'll show you one other example. Ron, he's my neighbor. I've known him for 5 years. He's over 80 years old, so he's much older than I am. But I have his phone number because he gave it to me. And he and his wife have invited me over for family events. I watch their cat in their house when they go away. He borrows my ladder when he picks his oranges. So Ron is a neighbor I've known for a really long time. I would feel comfortable going to his house uninvited. I would feel comfortable being like, hey, Ron, just wanted to come over and I had some time. I thought I'd come over and visit for a while. That would be an appropriate thing for me to do. I would feel comfortable doing that, and he would feel comfortable with me doing that because I've known him for 5 years. And we've had a lot of interactions prior to this with family events and helping each other. I know I can borrow something from him. I could call him up and say, hey, could I borrow your wheelbarrow? He would say, sure, because I've known him for 5 years and he borrows stuff from me. I could invite him and his wife for dinner because they've invited me to family events and things like that. And so I could return that friendship and have him and his wife come over for dinner. What I couldn't do, even though I've known Ron for 5 years, is invite him to go to a movie. That would be an inappropriate thing to do, even though I've known him a super long time. Um, Now I could invite him and his wife to go to a movie. That might be okay, but not him by himself. So this is just an example of the how you would build that chart. Ron would go at the top of that chart, and then you could put down some of this. Here's how long I've known him. Here's how old he is. He's a he. I can categorize him then because of that, a neighbor I've known a long time. And then I could go down my list of things that I have on the side and I could say, yes, I would say hello to him. I would call him on the phone. I would invite him to come to my house. I would borrow something. I could ask him for a ride. If my car broke down and I needed a ride to work, I could ask Ron. I wouldn't invite him to a movie. I I might choose to tell him about the disorder. Um, I would definitely offer to help him with something or ask him to help me with something, and I would go to his house without asking first. So those are just two examples of how you could use the scale of friends. So I wanted to cover this too because this is one of the things that on top of the disorder can just be super challenging for everybody. And um, e- everybody needs to work on their communication skills. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how old you are. Um, Being good at communicating with people is something that you should give some thought to um, and and do some work around. And um, especially if you might be one of these people, the people that do and say confusing things. Sometimes people do this because it's part of their personality. Sometimes people do this because they just don't think about it or realize. And then some of these things might be normal things to do, but if you're doing them with a person that has the disorder, they can be interpreted wrong. And so I kind of made a list of these confusing things that people do and say in everyday life. Sometimes people you just met give you their phone number. Sometimes, I could have started my job and Marco on the first day could have said, here's my cell phone number. Um, Sometimes people offer to give you rides. They say things like, we should go hang out, we should go to the movies. All these different things, act too friendly, you know, spend a lot of time with you. And again, it doesn't really matter who you are. You've probably had someone do these confusing things for you or been in a situation like this. And I bring this up because another story about Catherine, she long time ago, probably one of her first jobs she had. So I think she was probably still a teenager, maybe 19 or 20, because I think she was driving at this point. She had a job. I think it was at the mall. And she came home from her first day at this job and she said, "Oh, I met this really nice guy, my friend Brett from work. And my friend Brett told me that anytime I needed a ride, he would give me a ride. And so I'm going to call Brett tomorrow morning and have him give me a ride to work." And that's what she did. She called Brett and asked him to give her a ride to work. Now, she didn't need a ride to work. Her car wasn't broken. It wasn't snowed in, none of that. And what Brett really meant was if you get in a jam and your car's in a ditch or it's snowed in, I don't live too far from you and I could give you a ride sometime, someday, way, way in the future, but preferably not. That's what Brett really meant when he said, I could give you a ride if you ever need it. But Catherine took it as my new friend Brett told me he would give me a ride anytime, and I'm going to call him tomorrow, and my new friend Brett will give me a ride. So she really could have used this sort of guidance way back then. Um, and just to balance that out with one of my personal experiences when I was working at Cornell University as a curriculum specialist. There was a woman that worked in the department with me. Her name was Heather. And Heather and I actually lived very close to each other. She maybe lived like a block over from where I lived downtown. And so sometimes we would even end up like riding the same bus up to the college in the morning when we were working, or I would see her when I was walking my dogs in the evening. And so we would see each other at work because she worked in the same group that I did. She was our like a secretary assistant person, and super nice person, bubbly, super outgoing. And every week she would be like, "You're so much fun. We have so much fun together. We don't live that far away. It's so great to talk to you. We should do something this weekend. Do you want to go to a movie? Do you want to go? Let's go to a movie on Saturday. We should go to a movie on Saturday. Do you want to go to a movie on Saturday?" And I would be like, "Yeah, that sounds great. I've known you a couple weeks, a couple months now, and I feel ready. Like, sure, you're inviting me to go see a movie. Well, that's great." And so every weekend I would wait for her to call me on Saturday and be like, "Beth, let's go see that new movie. It's on at, 7 or 5:30. Which one do you want to go see?" And sometimes I would change my plans on Saturday. Someone would ask me, "Oh, do you want to go here?" So no, I'm going to go see a movie with Heather. She asked me to go see a movie on Saturday. Sometimes I might cut my day at the barn short because I wanted to make sure I was home to, I think this was before cell phones, home to get my phone, um, so that I wouldn't miss a phone call from Heather, and she never called me. We never once hung out. We never once went to a movie. We never did anything. She's a lovely, super friendly person, and but I kind of learned that I needed to keep her in this category of coworker, and she got to be a longtime coworker, but I and every week she would do the same thing to me. "Do you want to go see a movie?" And I would say, "Sure, Heather, when you're ready to go see that movie, you give me a call." And I would go about my life. I wouldn't wait for her. But even me, it took me, I don't even know how long, a couple of weeks of her doing that to me over and over again before I thought, like, you know what, even though she's saying this and she's saying all these nice things and blah blah blah, for whatever reason, she has no intention of ever going to see a movie with me. And so we just left it at that. So there's lots of people out there who will do those confusing things, and be on the lookout for them and hold true to your scale of where people are, because sometimes these confusing things that people say make you think that they're sort of like jumping the line in the scale of friends. So watch out for that. Um, so moving on to kind of some strategies for success, for other things you can do to help you along this journey of categorizing all the people in your life. My my number one recommendation to everybody is find a mentor. And the best mentor is going to be someone who is um, close to you and your family, possibly a relative, a sibling, if you've got one, an aunt or an uncle, cousin, or someone who's a really close family friend, because really the mentor needs to be someone that that your child or yourself, you feel comfortable having a asking for guidance from them and taking direction from them, and someone who can help you kind of navigate all of these things. So for Catherine and I ended up being that mentor for her. It just so happened that I have a serious horse addiction, and she loves animals too. And so we always had this sort of bond of the animals and the horses. And so we were always closer than the other siblings in our family. And so because of that, I learned, and Catherine learned, like I had a lot of influence over her. And so I was able to help her um, navigate some of this stuff. And so a mentor really has to be someone that um, you will allow to help you, or your child will allow to help them. It's not the best thing if you're the parent trying to be a mentor. Um, so once you find a mentor, that this whole chart and the scale of friends, that could be something that you go through with your mentor, that you could fill those charts out with your mentor. And probably that mentor, especially if they're a family member, they're going to be more familiar with the people that you're putting on this chart to begin with. And so they could really give you a lot of insight into maybe how you're already interacting with those people, or how you should be interacting with people. So go through the exercise of that with your mentor, and really use that person to help you figure out how to um, how to make some changes. And um, Catherine and I, just another story about Catherine. So for a while she lived with me when she was probably, I don't know, in her early 20s, and gotten a job. She was a teaching assistant. She'd gotten a job at the high school, um, being a teaching assistant, I think for some like one-on-one classroom type things. And so here you are, you're young and you look young, and she's maybe 22, 23, and she's back in high school, um, assisting high school students. So kids that are 16, 17, 18 years old, very close in age to her. And Catherine, like a lot of people with this disorder, has the tactile thing where she's very particular about stuff touching her and how her clothes fit and all of that stuff. And so as she was living with me, one of the things I noticed is that she would come out of her room every morning and be wearing something that really wasn't um, appropriate for wearing to school. It just might be like a little bit too low cut, or not have any sleeves, or um, things like that. So things that could get you in trouble if you're a young person at a high school and you're supposed to be, one of the teachers. So every day she would come out of her room and I would be like, Catherine, what are you wearing? You can't wear that. Bend over in that. Do you see what happens? You can't wear that top. Or lift your arms up. Do you see what happens? Like, look in the mirror. You can see here, and like, you can't wear that. Go back in and change. And she and I would have some pretty, like, almost to the point of like, well, we were just yelling. I would be like, just go back in there and do what I told you to do. You can't wear that to school. You will get fired. Something bad will happen. You won't even know it. Like, go back in and change. And I'd go in her room, and pick out something and be like, here, put this on. She'd be like, I hate that shirt. It's itchy. It's this and that. I don't care. Put it on. And months and I don't even know how long, every day, Monday through Friday, we'd have this same kind of knockdown, drag out fight. And one day I hear her in the morning as I'm getting ready. I can hear all this commotion from her room, like the closet, like it sounds like things are just flying around through her room. The closet doors are slamming. And finally, she rips the door open to her bedroom and she goes, I hope you're happy. I've been in here for 20 minutes and I can't figure out what to wear. All I can do is everything I pull out, I can hear your voice in my head being like, you can't wear this and you can't wear that. And she's like, I'm wearing this ugly shirt to work thanks to you. And I was like, you're welcome, Catherine. Thank you. My job is done. But it took her having a mentor, and it took somebody who she was willing to listen to, and it took me being willing to kind of get in there every day and have that hard conversation with her for her to get that through. And now, I mean, I haven't talked to her about what she wears to work in like 20 years. So here we are. So find someone that you really can have that kind of relationship with, and it's so important, I think, so important. The other thing I would say to you is, if you are wondering like, well, how do you find people to connect with? How would you find people who could be your friends? And I would say find something you love doing and go do it. If you're a parent with a child, find something that child loves doing and go do it. And I'm going to give a shameless plug right now for horses. If your kid loves horses, take them somewhere. Take them to therapeutic riding. Um, Take them to a regular place where they can go ride. The things you learn from being around horses and animals and being around other people, um, you learn so much from being there, and you will find other people who love being there too. And to this day and age, like most of my friends are horse people. I just eat, sleep, and breathe horses, and all of my friends do too. So it's an easy way to find people that I had something in common with. So if your kid loves sports, get them in all the sports stuff. If you love art, find, art clubs, 4-H, music, anything like that. You will meet people automatically who have something in common with you over something that you love doing. And then once you have that, you can build your relationships slowly over time with around that activity that you love and are sharing with other people. So I like this quote too from C.S. Lewis. It's kind of very appropriate. Friendship is born when one person says to another, "What, you too? I thought I was the only one." Um, so again, that moment of connecting around something, what, you love horses too? You're as crazy horse addicted as I am? I thought I was the only one. Find things you love, and then the people will be there. Um, a couple other things, and these are things, again, I don't care if you have the disorder or you don't have the disorder. Everybody can learn to be better at communicating. So everyone is capable of learning to be better at communicating. I don't care who you are, I don't care what your situation is. You That's the great thing about humans. We have an endless capacity to learn. So you can learn just like you learn a sport, just like you learned to tie your shoes, just like you learned to solve math problems. You can learn to be good at communicating. You can also learn to be self-aware along with that, which means as you're going through your day, you are aware of what you're doing and what you're saying and how other people are reacting to that. So you can learn to sort of look at yourself and analyze yourself and say, um, I don't think that was received the way that I thought it would be, or I think that person isn't comfortable with what I just said, or I don't think that person is comfortable with how that I stood too close to them. You can learn to be self-aware. You can learn to ask yourself the questions of how does this look from the outside in versus just being in yourself. That's what being self-aware is. And just remember, for everybody, learning takes time. So just keep going. And you know, this is with anything, that learning takes time. I am, you know, as old as I am, and I just decided that even though I haven't touched a piano since I was maybe 14, I'm gonna take piano lessons. And here I am, learning to play the piano. And I can tell you, I wish that I had learned more when I was younger, because it's pretty hard um, to play the piano when you're old. Um, so don't be afraid to get in there and to practice and repeat. And my last thing I'm going to say is, um, and this is kind of my whole thing, because I've heard over the years, going to some of the conferences and some things that people say, um, don't define your child and their abilities or their potential through the lens of this disorder. Don't, when you do that, you're limiting their ability to grow and learn. If you look at everything through this disorder, oh, they can't do that because of this disorder. Oh, that's not so great, but it's okay because they have the disorder. So it is what it is. If you look at everything that way, you're capping their potential. You're saying to them, you're never going to get any better than this, so don't even try. That's a horrible thing to say to anybody. And I look back and I think, like, if what's the one thing that made Catherine be capable of being who she is today? And I would say that it's because of the fact that we did not know that she had this disorder until she was 19. We just looked at everything through the lens of, well, that's Catherine, but she needs to be able to do this. And, you know, um, I've heard I've heard people say things like, oh, I don't think Fred is ever going to learn how to drive a car. And I'll say, well, how long have you been trying to have Fred learn to drive? Well, it's been 3 months now and it's not going so great. Mm, okay. Catherine, it took 3 years. And finally, my dad was like, Beth, you teach Catherine to drive, because we can't, we're not making any headway and we're scared. You teach her to drive. 3 years before we knew she had the disorder. And I can tell you right now that if my parents had known she had it before, Catherine probably wouldn't know how to drive today. But because we didn't know, and we said, everybody learns to drive, Catherine, it's just taking you longer, keep going. And that's how you need to think about this. Say, don't give up. Say it's okay if it takes you longer. Keep trying. You you wouldn't take, I mean, I've been taking horseback riding lessons for 40 years now, 40 years straight. And no one looks at me and says, Beth, you should just stop taking riding lessons. Um, you know, if you have a kid and you put them in soccer and they're just not that gifted at running, you wouldn't take them out of soccer if they loved it. You would be like, hey, keep going, it's great. You know, you're never going to be in the World Cup soccer championship, but keep going. um that's how you should treat your child, that they can keep going, that they can keep learning. It doesn't matter how long it takes you. um just keep at it and don't limit your child's potential. So that's my big plug. Um, I hope this helped everybody. This is the end of kind of my presentation part of it. And then I think we're gonna do some questions. I think I had one or two already come in, so I'll just start with those. And then I'm not sure how the other questions will be. I think you can type them into the chat. So if you guys have any other questions, you can type those in. So the first question was, at school, we have it set up in her 504 plan that she can talk with the school social worker to help with any social issues or conflicts that arise between my daughter and her classmates and friends. Can we use this social worker as a possible mentor to help with the awareness of the tiers of friendship? If so, how would we discuss this with the social workers? I would say absolutely. On this particular topic, um, the more people you that have an awareness of this around your child, the better it would be. So if the school guidance counselor or social worker um, was aware of this, that would be something they could help with at school in the time that they have with your child. So if you wanted to do that with them, I would share parts of this presentation, and I would share the back here to the scale of friends. I would make a list like this for your child, and then I would share a chart like this with anybody in your family that you or extended people that you would want to share that with, because they would definitely be a good resource to help with your child at school. Um, my next question is, you said in your presentation that we all need to work on things like this. My daughter, meaning communication skills and kind of categorizing people. My daughter recognizes that another student at school isn't healthy for her to be friends with, but the other child isn't picking up on the cues. What more can my daughter do to solve her situation? Because simply ignoring the student isn't working. Um, that one can be a tricky one because you don't want to hurt someone else's feelings, but I guess my advice for that, and I think it depends on the age of the child too. Um, but you could give your child some things to say to that other person that wouldn't be hurtful. So for example, you could say, oh, hi, Amelia. It's really nice to see you again today. Um, I I'm gonna have to stop chatting with you though, because I need to concentrate on my art project, or I need to concentrate on what the teacher is saying. Um, oh, hi, Amelia. Oh, thank you for inviting me to sit with you at lunch today, but I actually am planning on sitting with Susan today, and so I won't be able to sit with you, but thank you so much for inviting me. So maybe some things like that. And you can't cut people out completely, but if you give them sort of enough hints at sort of, you know, distancing yourself from them, maybe they would um, get the hint. But the other thing you could do with your child is to say to them, like, okay, Amelia isn't somebody that you like spending a lot of time with, um, but you could still interact with her in a way that would be nice, but not in a way that you're being, that you need to think of her as a friend. So you could say hi to her in the morning. You could, maybe sometimes she sits with you. You could invite her to come and sit with you and Susan. If you want to come and sit with me and Susan, you're more than welcome to, Amelia. But I'm not going to just sit with you because I told Susan I would sit with her. So, you know, again, helping your child understand some appropriate ways to interact with her, and understanding that you're maybe, sometimes you need to help people stay kind of in their lane too. Like, Amelia is going to be a nice girl I'm acquainted with at school, but not one of my friends. And so Amelia can do this, and this with me, but I'm not going to invite Amelia to come over to my house. If Amelia tries to invite herself over to my house, I might say, oh, thanks, but I don't really have, time to do that. Think of, again, put Amelia on this chart and make a list of what things could we do with Amelia that would be nice, but not to the level of where Amelia thinks we're going to be best friends. So that's that. Are there any other questions?
I did put one in.
Am I going to see those? Do I have to stop
There's
screen sharing to see them?
there was another one. It says,
Oh,
my son tends to get really triggered when other kids are being clicky and intentionally leaving him out. How can we help him deal with these hurt feelings in a healthy way as opposed to angry outbursts?
mm, yeah, that can be a hard one too, because I mean, kids are just terrible about that, aren't they? It's so hard. I One of the things I would do again is maybe help your son define who some of these people are, and um, to help them understand that, you know, maybe those people are already more familiar with each other, um, better friends, and maybe these are people that you just really met. And so be happy with maybe some small ways of interacting with them, maybe to the point of being like, hi Tim, hi Rick, nice to see you guys. And then I'm going to go over here and do my project, talk to my other friend, talk to my teacher or something. Um, so I would try to help him find some like small steps of interacting with that group of people that maybe he really wants to be included in. Um, and I found too, so I also have been a foster parent, and foster parent for teenagers. And um, the the foster kids I've had, some of them were very, very broken. And one of the foster kids I had, um, she had a whole lot of trouble kind of just navigating her whole day. Like, if she made it an hour into the school day without me getting a call from the school with her like melting down or her trying to hurt herself or something, It was a miracle. And what I learned with her really quickly is because she didn't really regulate her own, she had a very hard time kind of regulating her own feelings and understanding, like, again, like appropriate ways to interact with people. And so one of the things I started doing with her that made a huge difference, kind of every day before she went to school, I would have a conversation with her about, like, okay, Crystal, today you're going to go to school, and when your teacher, Mrs. Smith, says, um, good morning, Crystal, you're going to say, oh, good morning, Mrs. Smith. And you're going to be so happy that she noticed you and said good morning to you. When you go to school, if, Tim, who sits next to you, if you say good morning, Tim, and Tim's like, hey, Crystal, wow, that's going to be so great that he said hello to you. That's so nice. Because she wouldn't even pick up on those small things of people interacting with her. She would come home and be like, Mrs. Smith just hated me today. She didn't ignore me. She ignored me. And so I scratched myself with a pencil and went to the nurse's office. And um or she would say, like, I got a paper cut and Mrs. Smith didn't even care. But I would ask her, well, what did Mrs. Smith do? Did she not say anything to you? Oh yeah, she's looked at it and she said it wasn't too bad and she gave me a Band-Aid. And I'd have to explain to her, like, wow, that's great. She paid attention to you. She noticed something. That was an appropriate interaction for her to have with you, and you should be so happy about that. And so I would set her up with kind of like, remember, this is how it's going to be today. And I want you to come at home and tell me that when you said hi to some of the people you knew at school, that they said hi back, and that's going to be a great day for you. Um, so maybe trying to be proactive um, in that way with a child, especially with the angry outbursts. It made a huge difference, because she would be so excited, because I would say to her, I'm going to be so proud of you when you come home and tell me that, you said hi to Rick when you were at lunch today and he said hi back to you, or that you sat with them at lunch and just listened to their conversation that they had. Um, so I would try things like that. Like, can you set your child up with the correct way to feel in the scenario, the correct way to act in the scenario, and tell him how to do it before he gets there. And then when he comes back, go over it and then praise him for the correct response. And you might have to do that for months, years for him. You might have to do that with kind of all of those interactions, but it will make a big difference. So I hope that answers that question and helps. Are there any other questions? Am I supposed to be reading these in the chat here?
Let me go through the
I
chat.
thought someone was gonna.
Yep, I'm here for you.
Oh, okay.
Let me see. If there was anything else. I don't think that there were any other questions.
Okay. I think too, for that, the kid who has the kids that are being clicky, um, that really never changes. I have some horse friends, and I have a group of horse friends over here, and I have a group of horse friends over here. And the group of horse friends over here can be very clicky and not want to let, like, other people in. So I think sometimes helping your your kids or anybody kind of understand that they're not alone in that, that it's not just them. It's not, that happens to everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter um what, you know, what your challenges are. Um, people can act like that, and you know, just try not to let it be the thing that, you know, brings your whole world down. Just stay focused on the people that are interacting with you, and you know, maybe those mean boys aren't worth knowing. They're going to be the ones that grow up and are like, I don't know, you know, we're working at the 7-Eleven the rest of their lives. I don't know.
So Lillian is asking if she should be
Oh,
friends with a girl that was mean to her last year, but is now being nice.
I would say absolutely, because you want to be that kind of person that gives people a second chance. And um, but you still put that person through the the chart and the levels and how long have you known them. You still go there because remember, you have to build a friendship slowly. And part of building that friendship is allowing you to get to know that person and that person to get to know you. And you do that a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. You don't want to do it all at once because that protects you from getting hurt. Like, you know, like with Heather, I was really hurt. She seemed to want to be my best friend and then she never called me. It was really hurtful. Um, so having this scale of friends helps you from kind of being overly friendly to people, but it also helps you from getting hurt by people. But is, you know, if somebody was mean last year and they're now being nice, give them a second chance because you never know what, maybe they were going through something last year, maybe their home life was terrible, or maybe what you thought was them being mean was just them being shy or uncomfortable. Maybe they were being new in a new school. Maybe lots of people weren't being nice to them, and so they weren't being very nice to people. You just never know why people are acting the way they do. So I would say, yes, be be a friend, be nice, and grow your, see if you can grow that relationship into a better friendship.
Awesome. Well, Beth, we really thank you for your time. And we'll get all that, all the spreadsheet as well as the PowerPoint, and we can email it out
Mm.
to everybody that
Barb,
came up.
there's
Sure.
another
Oh,
question on
Oh,
here.
oh,
sorry.
another
It just popped
question.
up.
Okay. How
How
do
do
I
I?
approach a
Oh,
coworker who treats me differently than everyone else? Um, I would say this, I'm assuming this coworker might know that you have the disorder. If that's the case, um, I would say to them, and I think this is good advice for anybody. If you're a parent, okay. Um, if you are a, um, I think this is good advice for anybody. You want to make sure that people don't treat you differently because of the disorder. You want to make sure that people are treating you the same as everyone else. And so maybe there are times you could say to this coworker, there might be times where maybe I need you to help me because of my disorder or explain something. But if I don't ask you for that help, I would really appreciate it if you would just treat me like I'm the same as anybody else, like have the same expectation of me as anybody else. And you have to have that conversation with people because people aren't good at figuring that out. And a lot of people can think that they're being nice to you or nice to your child or being more caring, if they are treating you differently. Even going back to my foster kid, I had to have a conversation with her social worker because she was in trying to be very caring and nurturing, she was actually making some of Crystal's behaviors a whole lot worse, and she didn't realize she was doing it because she just thought that she was being helpful and caring and more nurturing, but because she wasn't treating, but in doing that, she wasn't having the expectation that Crystal act in appropriate ways. So she was giving Crystal attention for acting in some inappropriate ways, and then Crystal was continuing to act that way because it was getting her attention and she thought she should act this way. So sometimes you have to have that conversation for your child or for yourself. Like, I know I have this disorder and sometimes I need help, and maybe I'm saying sometimes I need help, but if I don't say I need help, hold me to the same expectation that everybody else has, because I'm capable of getting there. All right, so I think with that, we will adjourn. And I want to thank everybody for listening to me. I hope you guys all got something out of it. And Barb does have copies of some of the worksheets and things, and then she's recording this. So if you want to watch it again, it'll be there on YouTube at some point. And if anybody has any further questions or anything, you're always welcome to reach out to me through Barb or through Kathy, and I'd be glad to help you guys. So thank you so much.
All right, Beth, thank you so much again for doing this for us.
You're welcome.
We'll see you again soon.
You're welcome. All right, thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you.